This happened just 11 minutes ago. God revealed a hidden truth about someone you love. Do not scroll away. Stay here for a little longer, because if these words have found you today, there may be a reason your heart felt drawn to this exact moment. Exactly 11 minutes ago, something changed in a place that no camera could capture and no human eye could fully understand. It was not a loud event. It was not something the world would stop to notice. It happened in silence, where God often begins His greatest work. Someone you love suddenly felt an unexpected stillness settle over their heart. For a brief moment, every distraction around them seemed to disappear. The noise of the world faded, and a single thought rose to the surface with unusual clarity. They tried to push it away, but it remained. They tried to explain it logically, but their spirit knew this moment was different. God has a way of reaching people when every other voice becomes quiet. He does not always speak through miracles that everyone can see. Sometimes He speaks through memories that refuse to disappear, through peace that arrives without explanation, through conviction that gently knocks on a closed heart until it is finally opened. That is what began 11 minutes ago. Someone you love remembered something they had buried beneath fear, pride, and unfinished emotions. They remembered your kindness. They remembered your patience. They remembered the moments when you stood beside them without asking for anything in return. For the first time in a long time, they stopped blaming circumstances and began looking honestly at themselves. They realized that some of the distance between you was not created by destiny but by choices that fear convinced them to make. As that realization grew stronger, another truth quietly followed. They understood that while they were running from uncomfortable emotions, they were also running from the very lessons God had been trying to teach them. Sometimes God allows silence to become uncomfortable because only then will a person begin listening with the heart instead of the ego. Perhaps this is why your own spirit has felt different lately. Perhaps you have sensed a strange peace replacing the anxiety that once kept you awake at night. Perhaps you have noticed repeated numbers, unexpected dreams, or moments when you suddenly thought about someone without knowing why. Whether those moments have a deeper meaning or are simply part of your own reflection, they can remind you to slow down and examine your heart with honesty. God often uses quiet moments to invite us into wisdom rather than fear. While you were wondering whether anything was changing, heaven was already working in places beyond your sight. Doors were opening that you could not force open yourself. Hearts were being softened in ways that arguments never could. Truth was slowly replacing illusion. The person you love has been carrying questions they were too afraid to answer. Why did they walk away from someone who genuinely cared? Why did they choose comfort over honesty? Why did they believe there would always be more time? Those questions have finally become impossible to ignore. Yet this message is not only about another person's awakening. It is also about yours. God has been teaching you that your peace cannot depend on someone else's decision. Your value has never been measured by another person's attention. The love He has planned for you will never require you to lose yourself in endless confusion. Real love grows where truth is welcomed, where humility replaces pride, where actions become stronger than promises, and where both people choose honesty every single day. If someone is truly meant to walk beside you, they will not only speak beautiful words. They will also become a different person through consistent choices. Continue walking forward with faith instead of fear. Continue protecting the peace God has placed inside your heart. Pray for wisdom before you pray for outcomes. Pray that every relationship in your life becomes healthier, more truthful, and more compassionate. Pray that anything built on illusion quietly falls away so that only what is genuine remains. What began 11 minutes ago may become the beginning of someone's personal transformation, but your own transformation has already begun. You are learning to trust God's timing more than your own understanding. You are learning that unanswered prayers sometimes become protection rather than rejection. You are learning that delayed blessings often arrive stronger because they are built on truth instead of emotion alone. Keep your heart open, but keep your wisdom close. Let God guide the next chapter instead of fear. The hidden frequency beneath this moment is not panic. It is peace. It is the quiet reminder that heaven is always working, even when nothing seems to be happening. Trust that what is truly meant for you will never require deception to survive. It will arrive with clarity, with integrity, and with a peace that remains long after the moment has passed. The silence remained, but it no longer felt empty. It carried the weight of a question that neither you nor the person you love could answer immediately. Somewhere beyond what either of you could see, two separate journeys were unfolding at the same time. One journey belonged to a heart learning to let go of fear. The other belonged to a heart learning to stop searching for peace in places where it could never truly be found. Neither journey was easy. Growth rarely is. There are seasons when heaven seems quiet, not because you have been forgotten, but because your soul is being strengthened in ways that only silence can accomplish. You have prayed for answers, yet many of those prayers were met with waiting instead of immediate change. At first, the waiting felt painful. You questioned yourself. You wondered whether your hope had been misplaced. You asked why certain doors remained closed while others opened only halfway. But every unanswered question slowly became a lesson. Every delay slowly reshaped your heart until you became someone who valued peace more than certainty. While you were changing, the person you love was facing battles they had hidden from everyone around them. They smiled when others expected them to smile. They continued with ordinary routines. They laughed at familiar jokes. Yet beneath every conversation lived an uncomfortable awareness that something important had been left unfinished. There were words they wished they had spoken. There were moments they wished they had handled differently. There were opportunities they believed would always remain available, only to discover that time quietly changes every human heart. Regret has a strange way of arriving. It rarely announces itself with loud voices. Instead, it enters through ordinary moments. A familiar song. A forgotten photograph. A place once filled with laughter. A quiet evening when distractions finally disappear. Suddenly the memories return, not to punish, but to teach. They remind us that every choice shapes the future we eventually inherit. The person you love began noticing these moments more often. Instead of pushing them away, they finally allowed themselves to sit with the questions they had avoided for so long. Why had fear become easier than honesty? Why had pride become more comfortable than vulnerability? Why had they expected understanding from others while refusing to understand themselves? These questions did not arrive to condemn them. They arrived to invite them towards something better. Growth begins when excuses become unnecessary. Healing begins when truth becomes more important than comfort. As they reflected, another realization quietly unfolded. They remembered that peace never came from pretending everything was fine. It came only when they chose honesty, even if honesty required humility. That lesson did not arrive overnight. It unfolded one quiet moment after another until they could no longer deny it. At the same time, your own journey continued. Perhaps you noticed yourself reacting differently than you once would have. Situations that once filled you with anxiety no longer carried the same power. Conversations that once left you confused now encouraged you to seek clarity instead. You stopped measuring your worth through someone else's attention. You slowly began recognizing that genuine love does not constantly leave you questioning where you stand. Instead, it creates room for trust, patience, kindness, and mutual respect. This change inside you mattered more than you realized. Every healthy boundary you established became a quiet declaration that your heart deserved peace. Every moment you chose self-respect instead of endless waiting became an act of courage. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not another person changing. Sometimes the greatest miracle is discovering that you have changed. When your perspective changes, your entire world begins to change with it. Opportunities appear differently. Relationships become clearer. Decisions become easier because they are guided by wisdom instead of fear. There may still be difficult days ahead. Every meaningful journey includes them. Yet difficult days no longer have to define your future. They become reminders of how far you have already traveled. The person you love may eventually reach out with sincerity. They may choose to express what they once kept hidden. If that moment comes, allow actions to speak louder than emotions alone. Listen with compassion, but also with discernment. True transformation reveals itself through consistency, responsibility, and patience over time. If those qualities are present, healing becomes possible. If they are absent, your peace remains valuable enough to protect. God never asks you to abandon wisdom in the name of hope. Hope and wisdom are strongest when they walk together. Continue choosing honesty in every part of your own life. Continue becoming someone whose words and actions reflect the same truth. Continue praying not only for specific outcomes but also for the strength to accept whatever path leads toward lasting peace. Sometimes prayers are answered exactly as we expect. Sometimes they are answered in ways we never imagined. Either way, faith grows strongest when it is rooted in trust rather than certainty. As the night slowly gives way to morning, remember this: no season remains forever. Every period of uncertainty eventually gives way to understanding. Every lesson leaves behind wisdom. Every sincere act of forgiveness frees the heart that offers it. Whether this chapter leads toward reconciliation or toward a completely new beginning, your future does not depend on fear. It depends on continuing to walk with integrity, compassion, and courage. That quiet truth, more than anything else, is what began awakening 11 minutes ago, not only in someone you love, but also within you. And sometimes the greatest hidden frequency is simply this: a heart that is finally willing to become honest, a spirit that is finally willing to trust, and a life that is finally willing to move forward one faithful step at a time. As the first light of morning slowly reached the horizon, nothing around you appeared dramatically different, yet something within you had quietly changed. The questions that once demanded immediate answers no longer carried the same weight they had before. Instead of chasing certainty, you found yourself becoming curious about something deeper. What if every unanswered prayer had been preparing your heart for a greater level of peace? What if every delay had protected you from a chapter that would have taken you farther away from the person you were meant to become? These thoughts did not erase every fear overnight, but they softened its voice. Fear could no longer speak as loudly once truth had entered the room. Meanwhile, the person you love was beginning to notice the same pattern unfolding within their own life. The distractions that once seemed exciting now felt strangely empty. Conversations that used to fill the silence no longer reached the deeper places inside them. They realized that external success could never replace inner peace. No achievement, no recognition, and no temporary excitement could silence the quiet invitation they continued to feel inside their heart. It was not an invitation built upon guilt. It was an invitation toward honesty. There is something extraordinary that happens when a person stops running from themselves. They begin seeing every relationship through different eyes. They begin recognizing the moments where fear disguised itself as wisdom, where pride disguised itself as strength, and where silence disguised itself as protection. One by one, those disguises fall away. What remains is often uncomfortable at first, yet it is also where genuine healing begins. The person you love could no longer deny the truth that had followed them through countless quiet moments. They remembered conversations they once dismissed too quickly. They remembered opportunities to apologize that they allowed to pass. They remembered kindness they accepted without fully appreciating. None of those memories returned to shame them. They returned because memory often becomes the doorway through which wisdom quietly enters. At the same time, your own heart continued its journey. You noticed yourself becoming more patient, not because every circumstance had improved, but because your confidence no longer depended upon immediate outcomes. You stopped measuring progress by what other people chose to do. Instead, you measured it by the peace you carried into each new day. That peace became your greatest evidence that healing was already taking place. Sometimes people believe that healing means forgetting. Yet true healing is rarely about forgetting. It is about remembering without allowing the memory to control your future. It is about looking back with compassion instead of resentment. It is about recognizing that every difficult chapter has also taught you something valuable about yourself. You learned the importance of healthy boundaries. You learned that kindness and self-respect can exist together. You learned that forgiveness does not require pretending pain never existed. Most importantly, you learned that your identity is not defined by another person's choices. As these realizations grew stronger, your outlook toward the future quietly transformed. You no longer felt pressured to predict exactly how every relationship would unfold. Instead, you trusted that whatever belonged in your life would remain through honesty, consistency, and mutual effort. Anything unable to survive those qualities would eventually fade away on its own. That understanding brought a calm confidence you had not experienced before. Somewhere else, the person you love experienced a similar awakening. For the first time, they understood that real courage is not found in avoiding difficult conversations. Real courage is found in having them. It is found in accepting responsibility without searching for excuses. It is found in acknowledging mistakes while choosing to become someone wiser because of them. This realization did not instantly solve every problem, but it marked the beginning of genuine transformation. Every meaningful journey begins with one honest decision. As both of your paths continued unfolding, an unexpected truth became increasingly clear. Growth often happens separately before people are capable of walking together again. Two individuals cannot build something healthy if neither has first learned to stand firmly within their own integrity. Whether your paths eventually meet again or continue in different directions, the lessons each of you are learning now remain equally valuable. You are discovering how to trust without losing wisdom. They are discovering how to value honesty over comfort. These lessons cannot be rushed. They unfold through ordinary days, quiet choices, and repeated acts of courage. Continue giving yourself permission to grow without demanding that every question be answered today. Continue choosing compassion over bitterness whenever possible, while remembering that compassion never requires abandoning healthy boundaries. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to become the person you hope to meet in others. Every challenge offers another opportunity to respond with greater patience than before. Every disappointment carries within it the possibility of deeper understanding if you are willing to learn from it. There will still be moments when old fears attempt to return. They may whisper that nothing has changed, that hope is foolish, or that waiting has accomplished nothing. When those moments arrive, gently remind yourself how far you have already come. You are no longer the person who believed peace depended entirely upon someone else's decision. You have discovered a quieter source of strength. It grows through gratitude, reflection, humility, and trust. That strength cannot be taken away by circumstances because it was never built upon circumstances in the first place. It was built within your own heart. As evening approaches once again, allow yourself one final reminder. Every chapter of life eventually closes, making room for another to begin. Some chapters conclude with reunion. Others conclude with release. Both can become sacred when approached with honesty and grace. Rather than fearing whichever outcome awaits, continue preparing yourself to meet it with wisdom. Continue becoming someone whose life reflects integrity even when no one is watching. Continue choosing truth over illusion, patience over panic, and hope over despair. In time, the answers you seek will reveal themselves naturally through consistent actions rather than uncertain assumptions. Until then, let your greatest achievement be the peace you protect within yourself. That quiet peace is not weakness. It is evidence that your heart has learned to trust what is lasting instead of clinging to what is temporary. And perhaps that has been the hidden lesson all along, that the deepest transformation never begins outside of you. It begins within, one quiet decision at a time, until the person you are becoming finally reflects the peace you have been praying to receive. Night returned once again, but this time it carried a different kind of silence. It was no longer the silence of uncertainty. It was the silence that often appears just before a new chapter quietly begins. You could feel it without fully understanding it. There was no dramatic sign in the sky, no unmistakable voice calling your name, and no instant answer to every question you had been carrying. Instead, there was a calm presence, almost impossible to describe, reminding you that not every important change arrives with noise. Some of the greatest transformations begin when the heart becomes still enough to notice what has been true all along. As you reflected on the journey behind you, memories appeared differently than they once had. The moments that used to bring pain now carried unexpected wisdom. You no longer saw yourself only through the disappointment you experienced. You began seeing the courage that had quietly grown within you every time you chose kindness instead of bitterness, every time you chose patience instead of panic, and every time you decided to keep believing that your future did not have to be defined by your past. That quiet strength had become part of who you were. It was no longer something you searched for. It was something you carried. Meanwhile, the person you love continued facing their own season of reflection. They found themselves revisiting decisions they once believed could never be changed. Although the past itself remained untouched, their understanding of it had begun to transform. They realized that every choice leaves behind more than consequences. It also leaves behind lessons. The greatest mistake they had made was not simply allowing distance to grow. It was believing that fear deserved more authority than honesty. They had spent so much time protecting themselves from vulnerability that they unknowingly protected themselves from genuine connection as well. This realization did not arrive to condemn them. It arrived to offer them an opportunity to become someone different than they had been before. Growth always begins with the willingness to see ourselves clearly. As the days continued passing, both of you found yourselves becoming less interested in appearances and more interested in authenticity. Conversations that once seemed important suddenly felt shallow. Achievements that once seemed essential no longer satisfied the deeper longing for meaning. Instead, your attention slowly shifted toward the qualities that remain valuable regardless of changing circumstances: integrity, compassion, patience, honesty, humility, and courage. These qualities cannot be purchased. They cannot be borrowed from another person. They are developed quietly through countless ordinary decisions made when no one else is watching. Perhaps this has been the hidden purpose of the entire journey. Not simply to bring two people together or separate them forever, but to shape both hearts into something stronger, wiser, and more capable of giving and receiving love with maturity. Every difficult season has asked something of you. Sometimes it asked you to wait. Sometimes it asked you to forgive. Sometimes it asked you to release expectations you had held too tightly. None of those lessons felt easy while you were living through them. Yet looking back, you can now recognize that every challenge carried within it the possibility of becoming someone you could never have become otherwise. There were moments when you believed nothing meaningful was happening because change appeared so slow. Yet deep roots always grow beneath the surface long before anyone notices new branches reaching toward the light. Your life has been much like that. Quietly, steadily, almost invisibly, your foundation has been growing stronger. That foundation will support every healthy relationship, every wise decision, and every peaceful season that still lies ahead. The person you love experienced a similar realization. They stopped asking why certain memories continued returning and instead began asking what those memories were trying to teach them. They understood that regret becomes valuable only when it leads toward responsibility rather than self-pity. Wishing the past had been different cannot change it. Choosing differently today can shape tomorrow. This simple truth became more powerful than any excuse they had repeated before. Slowly, they began allowing honesty to replace defensiveness. They became willing to acknowledge what they once denied. Although difficult, this process also brought unexpected freedom. Every truth accepted removed another burden they had been carrying for far too long. While this inner transformation unfolded, your own attention became increasingly focused on the present moment. You discovered that peace grows strongest when you stop attempting to control every possible outcome. Instead of demanding certainty, you practiced gratitude for what already existed. You noticed small blessings that once escaped your attention: a quiet sunrise, a meaningful conversation, the comfort of familiar places, the encouragement of kind people, and the simple gift of another opportunity to begin again. Gratitude gradually changed the atmosphere of your heart. It reminded you that even while waiting for certain answers, life continued offering beautiful moments worthy of appreciation. This new perspective influenced every area of your life. Relationships became healthier because you communicated with greater honesty. Decisions became clearer because they were guided by principles instead of impulse. Even difficult situations felt more manageable because you trusted your ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. Wisdom often grows so gradually that we fail to recognize it until we realize we are handling familiar challenges in completely different ways. That is exactly what has been happening within you. You have not become someone without emotions. You have become someone whose emotions no longer control every decision. This quiet maturity is one of the greatest gifts any journey can produce. There may still be moments when uncertainty returns. There may still be days when old memories briefly revisit your thoughts. Allow those moments to come and go without fear. Memories are part of being human. What matters most is the meaning you choose to give them. Instead of allowing them to reopen old wounds, allow them to remind you how much strength has already been developed through every challenge you survived. Every difficult chapter has contributed something valuable to the person you are becoming today. Nothing has been entirely wasted. Even disappointment has taught discernment. Even delay has taught patience. Even loss has taught gratitude for what truly matters. As your story continues unfolding, remember that the future is not built in one dramatic moment. It is created through ordinary choices repeated consistently over time. Every kind word spoken, every honest conversation held, every boundary respected, every act of forgiveness offered, and every decision guided by wisdom quietly shapes the life you will one day look back upon. Do not underestimate the significance of small faithful steps. They often accomplish what dramatic moments never could. Continue protecting the peace you have discovered. Continue choosing truth even when it requires courage. Continue extending compassion without abandoning wisdom. Continue believing that healthy love always grows where respect and honesty are allowed to flourish together. If someone truly wishes to walk beside you, let them meet you through consistent actions rather than temporary emotion. Let patience reveal character. Let time confirm sincerity. Trust that what is genuine becomes stronger when tested instead of disappearing. And if certain paths eventually separate despite every sincere effort, remember that not every ending represents failure. Some endings create space for beginnings that could never have existed otherwise. The road ahead may still contain unexpected turns, but you no longer walk it with the same uncertainty that once filled your heart. You carry experience where confusion once lived. You carry wisdom where fear once spoke the loudest. You carry hope that has been refined by reality instead of wishful thinking. That hope is quieter now, yet far stronger than before because it rests upon truth rather than illusion. As another day comes to its gentle close, allow yourself to rest without demanding that tomorrow reveal every answer immediately. Trust the process of becoming. Trust the quiet work that continues within your heart. Trust that every lesson learned with sincerity will become a source of strength for someone else someday. Above all, remember that your greatest victory has never been convincing another person to change. Your greatest victory has been allowing every experience, whether joyful or painful, to shape you into someone capable of living with deeper integrity, greater compassion, steadier faith, and lasting peace. That quiet transformation continues even now, one faithful step after another, carrying you toward a future built not upon fear, but upon wisdom, hope, and the enduring strength of a heart that has learned how to remain open without losing itself.